Welcome to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Carlisle is home to a thriving downtown, strong neighborhoods, arts and culture, abundant recreation, and strong civic engagement. While rich in history, Carlisle is constantly evolving to meet the challenges and opportunities of today's environment. To ensure that we continue to build a more equitable and resilient Carlisle, we must not only focus on the present and plan for our future, but we must also reckon with our past. In 2019, important work began on returning a former African American cemetery into the sacred space it once was. In January of this year, we held a community town hall discussing racial equity. Out of this meeting, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission formed to help acknowledge, address, and heal the historical wounds of racism in our community. Like all communities in America, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted us in a major way. Thanks to our existing community infrastructure, help was quickly given to those most in need. A collaborative group of community leaders and volunteers assembled and worked to identify emergency and ongoing needs. Even during a global pandemic, we kept our eyes on the future by establishing a Climate Action Commission tasked with creating a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Our community stepped up once again, and a record number of residents volunteered to serve. The Commission will ensure their plan reflects our community's values and addresses environmental and racial justice factors.
Good afternoon. My great-grandmother's name was Fleda Mae Jordan. She was born in 1900 and at the age of 71 was faced with the impending conversion of the Black cemetery across the street from her home. The conversion was troubling for her, and the plan for said conversion was not clear. As a vocal community activist, my great-grandmother was adamantly concerned with the policies and decisions of local government and knew that what was taking place was not only wrong, but that it would have long-lasting and negative impacts on the community that she loved. This woman, with little formal education, petitioned the court, and when all of the conversion was completed, the headstone with the family last name of ours, Jordan, is the one and only headstone that remains. I often think about how different the movement becomes when the only remnant of a sordid history is a smooth, erected piece of granite, seemingly out of place, but intent on igniting a community to do better. And that's what this community has done by taking small yet significant measures toward righting wrongs and rectifying past behavior, by moving toward radical apology, truth, and reconciliation. I'll now hand it over to Kara Curtis from the Cumberland County Historical Society.
Stories of our local African American community members were excluded from the narrative. This space, this Lincoln Cemetery, is a visible reminder of that. This sacred space, as smaller than a football field, the Cumberland County Historical Society's ongoing research shows that the cemetery is several decades older than thought. For decades, it was understood to be the final resting place of around 100 people. Today's research shows that around 650 community members are buried in this hallowed ground. Working with a variety of community partners on descendant-driven projects has led to a rebirth of the cemetery. Its evolving history is led by descendants and the community that surrounds it. With funding from the PA Humanities Council, the PA Council of the Arts, and community partners, we were able to create visible reminders of the sacredness of this space with the Community Art Project. The mosaic tiles installed at the site were designed by descendants, community members at the Black Cultural Festival, and students that attend programming at Hope Station in Memorial Park. Veterans' names and the surnames of those buried in the hollowed ground are painted into the mural. Community members and interns are helping to tell the stories of Carlisle's Civil War United States colored troops. The stories that we are now learning and telling impact our community. Learning the truth about our past will help lead to a more equitable future. It is now my pleasure to introduce President Ensign and the Community Action Network.
Thank you, Kara. Judges, Carlisle CAN Community Action Network was established 4 years ago. Our goals at the time were to work on affordable housing, livable wages, and racial and social justice. During the last 18 months especially, I believe we have lived up to our motto, Carlisle, City with a Conscience. Totaling over 90 members, in the last 18 months, approximately 55 members have been active every week for our meeting. We've established many subcommittees who have been working tirelessly to make sure no one in our city goes hungry, that everyone has access to healthcare, had a mask, that businesses could continue operations online, children had after-school tutoring, and as you've heard, we've begun to confront the racial inequities in our city. We helped United Way raise close to $125,000. With our healthcare partners, Sadler and UPMC, we are still working to ensure that everyone can get a vaccine. One of the reasons we are ranked 5th in the state for total people vaccinated. Judges, at this point in American history, how many cities can say they work across all political divides? They work with all members of our faith-based community, including our Black churches, with all of our business leaders, with our lead NGOs, including Hope Station and Project Share, our healthcare partners, as well as our 3 anchor educational institutions, Dickinson College, the U.S. Army War College, the Commandant or Deputy Commandant was on every week, and Dickinson Law School. I'm proud of all the work that CAN has done. One of the initiatives that developed from CAN was the Civic Action Internship Program. Gary Kirk, the Executive Director of Dickinson College's Center for Civic Learning and Action, will tell you about this important program. Thank you.
As the pandemic progressed, Carlisle CAN generated many essential projects. CAN members were always willing to pitch in, but there often seemed to be more work than people. At the same time, many college students were learning that their summer 2020 internships were canceled or revoked. This challenging moment presented an opportunity to leverage the talent and energy of Dickinson students to support the CAN. I thought we might be able to recruit 2 or 3 interns, but we eventually selected 16 from a pool of nearly 80 applicants. Interns worked in staff mentored teams on about 24 projects ranging from database development to public health campaigns. Interns noted that despite being remote, they felt more connected than ever to the Carlisle community. Every intern gained valuable civic and professional skills, and at least 2 have decided to pursue careers in public service due in part to their experiences. I'm delighted to turn it over to Jessica Poe, representing the United Way of Carlisle, to talk about her experience working with our Civic Action interns.
Thanks, Gary. United Way was pulled in many different directions to respond to the needs created by the pandemic. Dickinson Civic Engagement interns gave us the capacity to turn our annual Fill the Bus event into a virtual fundraiser and collection effort. One student created the amazing promotional video, which just started, and 2 other students created online shopping lists and also priced out what it would cost to order pre-stuffed backpacks in bulk. Due to this collaboration, we were able to have community members, businesses, and faith organizations underwrite the total amount for school supplies and backpacks for 1,000 children in our community from low-income households. I'd now like to introduce Joel Hicks, Chair of the Climate Action Commission.
Thank you very much, Jess. Jury, here in Carlisle, we understand that global climate change is one of the most serious threats to our collective future. Although we know we can't solve it alone, all levels of government and all communities must do their part. Last year, Carlisle Borough passed a resolution to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to levels consistent with our national commitments. This effort requires coordination with all sectors of our community, as you'll hear from our Climate Action Commission team leads. Additionally, we've partnered with our sister city in Carlisle, England, to learn from each other's experiences. Now, here is Mohammed Badisi, our Projects and Estimates team lead.
Thank you, Joel. In addition to the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, the Carlisle Climate Action Commission also aims to make Carlisle a leader in clean and local renewable energy, and to transform our buildings into high-performance places to live, work, and play. The Commission is working to transform Carlisle into a community where people can walk, they can bike, they can take mass transit, or even carpool in ways that are safe, of course, accessible, and affordable, all within this transportation network. And through the Commission's work, Carlisle is aiming to become a leader in sustainable and smart transportation. through innovative partnerships, policies and programs, and of course, technology innovation. With that in mind, and it's my pleasure to hand it off to my co-commissioner, Carla Farrow.
Communities of color and low-income populations are often underserved and underrepresented in our programs, investments, and decision-making. This exacerbates the disparities in public health, food, energy, housing, air and water quality, economic prosperity, and the overall quality of life. To create a sustainable climate action plan, we must embed racial equity, social justice, and social cohesion within the infrastructure, environmental, social, and economic aspects of resilience. The Commission will work directly with community faith leaders, racial justice leaders, and educators to ensure outreach to those underserved and comprehension of their challenges and incorporate their experiences into our climate action plan priorities.
To create a plan that addresses our community's needs, we'll need to actively engage with and listen to all stakeholders in the Carlisle community, including residents, small business owners, religious communities, and neighborhood and nonprofit organizations. Throughout the development of our climate action plan, the community engagement team is seeking input from the community and with the goal to ensure that the final plan reflects our community's values and maintains community support. Our team uses various methods to engage with the community. This includes online and paper surveys. We've also hosted online workshops and an in-person community bike ride. And we've participated in community events such as the Amani Festival, a multicultural celebration in Carlisle. We'll also be participating in Carlisle Hope Station's Juneteenth celebration this year. These events provide opportunities to talk to our community and receive feedback to share with the Commission. The Commission will use this information to propose creative plans, projects, and policies to benefit all stakeholders in the Carlisle community. And now I'll hand it off to Anthony Underwood, leader of the Pathways and Analytics team.
Thank you, Sarah. The Climate Action Commission has brought together dozens of organizations and residents into this climate action planning process. Businesses, nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, local and state government agencies are all playing an important role in our climate action planning. And it's really only through this patient and inclusive process that the innovation and community buy-in that we need can actually happen. For example, our local utility providers are being challenged to view Carlisle as an opportunity to explore new technologies and programs to accelerate a transition to a lower carbon future in our community. Our collaboration even reaches internationally with our sister city, Carlisle, England.
For us, it's really resonates with the work that we're doing at the moment, but it's particularly, it just shows you how climate change has no boundaries. It affects all of us, and we all have to work together to really address this really serious and important issue.
Thank you so much, Carlisle. We are out of time, but I appreciate your presentation. I'm going to hand it over to the jury members now.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carlisle, for kicking us off on our second day. Let's see what questions the jury has for the Carlisle group. And just folks, remember that there are 2 pages of the Carlisle team in case you're looking for who's talking. So let's start with Josh, and then we'll get Mayor Daley, and then I'll add myself to the queue.
Well, thank you for a wonderful presentation. As I was looking over your application and then also hearing your comments this afternoon, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the equity approaches you took to your Civic Action Internship program. It's great that it was a success. How did you reach? Did you reach a variety of different demographic groups when it came to reaching out for potential interns? And can you talk about whether or not you targeted certain areas of the community that perhaps are underrepresented in the civil service and civil society space in your jurisdiction?
Yeah, I can speak to that quickly. The Civic Action Internship program was available to Dickinson students, and we were really fortunate to have a very diverse pool of applicants. And we worked really hard to co-recruit with offices on campuses that support populations of students, students of color and underrepresented groups in that process. And the interns, of the 16 interns, I don't have the numbers in front of me at this moment, but I think we had 10 interns of color. In terms of the service projects, those were generated by the Carlisle Community Action Network, and we had really great representation. Many of the focus areas that we had were on underrepresented communities, underserved communities. So I think we, probably the vast majority of our projects really fell into that category.
Thank you.
Excellent. And actually, I'm going to jump in and ask a follow-up question about that same project, which is, how are you measuring, when you're thinking about the CAN work, how are you measuring the impact of that collaborative work, that powerful collaborative work? What does success look like, and how are you measuring it?
You know, I'll jump in, Gary. It looks different. It looks different the last 15 months during the pandemic than it did the previous almost 3 years, when we were really working with our community to ensure that we had affordable housing and livable wages. And the work began then on some of the racial justice initiatives that you're talking about now. But we kept some good metrics during the pandemic. We raised $10,000 to get 6,000 masks out to businesses. Gary has the data on how many businesses that our students worked with to get them online so they could actually stay functioning. One of the reasons I believe strongly, and the data would support it, that we're 5th in the state, as I said, for vaccines, is because we had programs to make sure we got vaccines, we still do, to homeless and to homebound people, individuals that many programs miss. So we've kept the metrics, and particularly these last months, Gary, I think it's over 800 young children who've been tutored by students and others in the community online, and that program was run by our faith-based community. So I think it's important also to remember, and I tried to emphasize that at the beginning, I don't know of another city that is working with Republicans, Democrats, faith-based, business leaders, and so on at a time of great division in our country. So I'm as proud of the people who are participating as well as the outcomes.
Excellent, thank you. Let's get Mayor Daley, and then Dante, and then Mayor Shelton.
Okay, I'll try not to be long-winded, Angela. We got a lot of people in queue. Carlisle, great job. Just a couple of highlights, let me just say. First of all, Ms. Stallworth, love the opening of the presentation with the personal touch with the family story. I thought that was unique. I love the videos. I thought it was all great. The international flavor with your sister city participating as well and showing support. That was a unique twist. Good job. So my question is in regards to your climate action plan. It's a two-part question. As we know, when communities go through this process to create a climate action plan, a lot of times we learn a lot. It's not just about the final product of the plan itself, but it's the process of getting your community involved. My question about your climate action plan process, number one, what was, as identified while you were going through the process, the greatest hurdle as a community that you had to overcome in order to reach the goal? And what was the greatest success lesson that you learned about your community in developing the climate action plan? I was very impressed with your written written submission about your civic engagement, but what did we learn along the way?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Well, to respond to our, the critical aspect of community engagement, we knew there's not a blueprint for how to organize a commission. If you look at 20 cities, you'll get 21 different plans of how to organize a commission. So first of all, we organized it in a way that was representative of the resources we had here, but we also knew we needed a dedicated community engagement team. Sarah Markowitz, who you heard from a little bit earlier, is leading that team. And I think one of the big challenges we have, and it is true in most policy sectors, is really trying to understand the needs of the underserved populations. Sometimes you'll hear, low income, medium income households. As we work with our utility providers who are also trying to meet those needs, we're realizing that we need to hear not just how can we provide clean energy to your neighborhood, but how can we provide affordable energy? And I'll let Sarah jump in here, but I think that I think what we're learning is sometimes understanding those needs is a personal discussion, a personal conversation, in addition to the surveys and other tools we use. But Sarah, I'd like to defer to you on your observations.
Yeah, of course. So we're still learning along the way. So the plan itself won't be completed until October. So we're still really hitting the streets. And this month we're focusing on going door to door as much as we can in our neighborhoods surrounding us, and then also in neighborhoods that we know to be either underprivileged, underserved, lower mid income as well. And then, I mean, so far, I think some of the challenges have been trying to get out in the community during the pandemic, trying to reach people who are not online. So earlier in the pandemic, we did have to do much more online. Now we're able to be out in the community, we're able to go to events, we're able to have tables. And we use the survey to get information and feedback from the community, but also to kind of start that conversation. You know, what do you want to see in the community? What are projects that the Carlisle Borough could either commit to or even just consider that might help you to personally address your greenhouse gas emissions as a household? Are there things that you want to see in the Carlisle community for the community, maybe for your neighborhood? Is that more gardens? Is that easier accessibility and walking and biking? It could be a range of things. So I think, you know, earlier, what Joel said about trying to find out what the community wants and their community needs. Yeah, that's been a bit of a challenge, but we're doing the best that we can. I'd say lessons learned so far, you know, there's never too much outreach. I think that's like one of the big ones. And yeah, just trying to diversify how we're reaching out as well, you know, in different ways, trying to, you know, look into mailing, look into, you know, the online events, going door to door, going to a handful of community events or just whichever community events we can get to. Yeah, but I'm sure there'll be even more lessons along the way as well.
All right. Well, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, thank you so much for the courage of the radical apology that you have been, and the radical truth storytelling that you've been engaged in. It is really powerful to hear how your community has come together across sectors. It is clear that Carlisle can. So thank you so much for kicking us off today and for being an All-America City finalist.